All right, let's get to the baking of this week's code cookie. First, a quick disclaimer. This week we will be looking at a possible .NET SDK for Service Point plugins, and it's just a prototype and nothing here is final. It's just some playing around that I've been doing, but I felt that I wanted to show it for you. And if you feel that you want to test it out and come with feedback on this, hit me up on the chat, and I will send you the project, and you can test it out yourself. Okay, so I created two projects here. We have the Service Point SDK, which consists of general stuff. In this state, it has some drop-down and drop-down item interfaces that you can implement to easier start developing your drop-down in .NET. And we have an item compare for drop-down items as well. That's so you can get the distinct or unique values out presented in your drop-down. And then we have an implementation here, which we just call off the interface that we just call drop-down item, which you can use many times through your implementation and in your drop-downs. And then we have another project here for graph related stuff. So that handles everything in Azure basically. So it handles Teams and Azure Active Directory and whatever things you like to do there, like the stuff related to your infrastructure there as well, and apps and stuff like that. So we have, it's basically a utility library which handles the connection to graph and the querying of graph entities in general. And so I have created those two, and I now created a drop-down based on the SDK to test it out. And I'm going just to do the same thing here for you to show how it can be used. Starting now. So let's click on right click on the solution, click add new project. I'm just gonna go with .NET Framework class library. You could go for .NET Core if you'd like. I'm going to choose that, and I think I will call it drop down Azure group. Clicking create, and we get this empty project, and I'm just gonna do some cleaning up here. I don't want to have the namespace include the class name, so I'm gonna rename the class and remove AC group from the namespace, because I want them to be named in the same manner as we name the PowerShell drop downs in the UI in Service Point. So I want the name to be dropdown point AC group. I don't want it to be dropdown.ac group. And that's how that works basically. Okay, then we're going to implement the interface as well, but first we need to add references here. So I'm going to right click on references, choose add reference, and I have projects in my solution here. I'm just going to go ahead and add both the SDKs immediately, and then I'm going to declare that I'll be using these. Like that, and then we do I drop down, and we hit enter, and we get the red squiggly line. The cute little squiggly line, and we hit control dot, and we choose to implement the interface, and then we get all the methods that we need to have in our dropdown. We get the get categories, and we get the correct signature for this method as well, and we get the get default, search, and validate, and everything you need to have in a dropdown to utilize it to the fullest. Okay, so we will probably be looking at the search first here. And if I take a sneak look, you can start developing from here, I mean. And perhaps you'd like to do this as well. You want to put them as put the default on null on these as well. Because category, perhaps you want to use category. Most often you will not be using category, I guess. And This the idea behind this drop down is that we will be able to search for groups in Azure. So I'll be taking a piece of code from my drop down here, and this is just to initialize. Okay, so this is still called class 1. I probably want to fix that. Like that. Where did I put? Did I put it in the wrong place? Didn't take that? No. Yes, not in here. We want to put it down here. So what we do is basically we start up a new instance of our Graph SDK class, and we have a method there. Well, when you do that, we have a constructor that sets up the connection with the required stuff. Like, we can have a look here actually. So we send in the tenant ID and app ID from the provider XML, so that's something you need to have in there. And in here we basically have an app secret to our app, and the only thing we do is basically we set up the connection to be able to query the API. So initialize takes care of that, and it also reads in a drop-down configuration, which I will be showing you shortly. And from that drop-down configuration, we also get the properties that you want to get through the API call. Then that's I want to show you that later as well, but it will be you can by specifying the properties that you want to retrieve, you can optimize your queries, and you can also write filters on those properties, which I will show you shortly. And if I take from get user here, I can basically steal this function. So in this SDK, we should of course supply some example projects that you can use as well, not only interfaces. And we need to have get results as well. And I'm going to take both of these. No, just go with this actually. Put it private methods at the bottom, and MS Graph. Yes, so we need to include the package, and I have a Microsoft Graph SDK which we use in our own Graph SDK. So I need to install that in my project as well, and I just do that by hitting control point and choosing to install it. And that's fixed now. And yeah, so that means we are almost there. We need to rename the class as well, because this is very important. Let's call it AC group. And a very important thing is, of course, you need to put the build output folder to somewhere that you inventory with service points. And I have a place here. I call it Azure ND Central, and I create a new folder, and it should have the exact same name as your DLL file. So that's the namespace plus class name there. So I select that, I save, and if I go in there now, plugin, it's empty, but if I build, I get all the stuff I need. Okay, so almost there now. I need to have a drop-down configuration as well. And the ones of you that are familiar with our PowerShell plugins like Active Directory, we usually use drop-down.xmls to get delegation and stuff like that working. But we are going to go with JSON now instead. So I'm copying this one that I already created, which follows like a design that I decided upon basically. So you have selected props, so every time someone does a search in all the queries we specify the props that we want to select. So for sure we want the ID, because the ID will be the variable value in the drop down when they selected something. But then perhaps we want to filter on the surname or whatever, or we want to filter on user principal name, and perhaps we want to present the display name and the mail. And by the way, what we want to present we can write down here as well. So we have name, which will be the primary portion of what the person using the dropdown sees in the actual form, and we have extra info, which will be within parentheses after the output name here. So I think we'll be going with the display name on the group, because that's a property it has. I actually prepared a drop down JSON here, so I'm just going to paste that in here and save display name and description. And then we have the get default filter, and this doesn't work yet. I haven't figured out that filter yet, but the idea is that when you go into the service and you get the default selection in your drop down, this is the query to run. And then we have the graph filters, and then we have this is a list of roles, and I have both these roles. So for every search I will be doing, we will run a search using this query where 0 is replaced by the thing you write in search. And then we have this role, which is just static. I will search and add persons called Daniel Svensson, just for fun. And we don't need that really. Okay, so let's build here so we get all the latest binaries out there, and let's start the inventory system to inventory stuff here. And let's go into my own service point. I'm just going to go with the service, little test service that I have, and hopefully it have inventoried successfully now. Just go in here and check. Yeah, so I have already selected my Azure group data source here, and if I go to the service, we should be able to write. Okay, so groups, we probably have some service point group, no results. Okay, checking the event log. Okay, so we can actually debug this. Let's go in here, and we go into search, and we attach to the ww3tp process the web service, and we go in here and just write another character, and we'll get into the search, and we can see I search on serve, and we have stuff in config, so that's good. Category should be empty, initialize, that's fine. We get the filters first, so we look at that. We have two filters. Display name starts with serve and Daniel Svensson. We hit F11 to go in here, and here we create our drop down items, and we go into the service and we do a search, and it works, but it doesn't look very good. But we can see here we have the name of the group, the display name, and within parentheses we have the description of the group. So we can change this now on the fly. Actually, we can go in here and we can say that we don't want the description here, we just want to have the ID within parentheses, and I can just save there and build. And we can build fine now because the binary hasn't been updated, only the drop down JSON. But it seems it's stuck. Actually, I will do an IS reset. Yeah, okay, so we couldn't overwrite the files. That's because service point is locking the files in the build folder. So I'm gonna restart IIS and then build again, and it's build succeeded now. And we go back into service point, and I can refresh here. And if I search on the same groups again, we can see that now we get the display name and we get the ID within parentheses. And I can play around and modify this filter, and I can have different filters for each roles. Perhaps you only want people to be able to search for groups that have the same some kind of attribute stamped and linked to the country of your user. And well, you can apply and say that the group must have this attribute equals to Sweden, to have and you link that to the Swedish role, and you give all the users that should have this possibility the Sweden role in service point. And so you remember these roles, they stack as well, so you can have Sweden, Norway, and if a person with both these roles search in this drop down, they will be able to find groups in both countries. Okay, so that's about a very, very early preview of this little project here. So I hope you had fun, and hope this gives you something, and have fun and stay healthy and everything like that. So talk to you in a few weeks again. Bye.